In our past 20 some years of developing software, Keyhole software, the past 3 really focusing on AI, there's probably 5 different ways that we've seen companies effectively use AI for software development. The first is code generation. If you have been living under a rock for the past 3 years, you probably have not heard about tools like GitHub Copilot. But for us, where we have been not living under a rock, almost every single developer is using it, whether you know it or not. And so if you're a large organization, you're going to have to accept the fact that this is a tool, it's here to stay, and how can you use it effectively? I, as someone who has been developing software for a score of years, I use it every day. I use it to offload some of the mundane tasks that I would have to code manually if I wanted to, but my fingers are too tired, they're too busy, I honestly don't want to do it anymore. And I can describe something for what I want, get something back, do a little fix, and then go on the way. So for the clients that are using it, we've definitely seen both a decrease in the amount of time it takes to develop, and then an increase in the number of stories that they're producing. The second is along the generative AI lines. It's actually using agentic AI to be able to do robotic process automation. If you're talking about being able to describe what you want, if you want to be able to have these agents that are sitting there and testing your code for you as it comes out, quality assurance teams are actually using agents far more rapidly and far more effectively sometimes than even software development teams are. They can interact with it and they don't have to do a lot of the custom coding that they used to be able to do, in yesteryears before these tools were out. So if your quality assurance team doesn't know about things like agentic AI and RPA, it's time to jump on that bandwagon. The best time to do it was actually 5 years ago. The second best time to do it is actually today. A third way that we're using generative AI and AI tooling in general in the software development lifecycle is when it comes to error checking. Now, for the longest time, there was only 2 ways that we could do these kind of code analysis. There was a static, and then there was a dynamic. There's pros and cons to both of those, and you most often want to use them together. But the really cool thing is, when you have an AI that helps you generate code, you have another AI that's actually looking through the code that was generated and asking it, is it free of defects? Is it free of security vulnerabilities? Does it have good performance? Those kind of checks and balances are something that when I began developing software and just, straight Notepad, I had no idea that could have possibly happened. And the companies that we work with that are really leaning into this, they're seeing a lot of advantages. They're seeing reduced errors in production. They're shifting left as far as they can using these AI tools. The fourth way that we're seeing people use AI tooling is when it comes to be able to onboard new developers. You put yourself into their shoes. You get this large code base. How are you going to understand everything in it? You could have a senior developer take time to sit with a junior developer, kind of walk them through the code base, but then you're spending time for 2 people. What if, instead, you had an AI assistant that used RAG to understand the entirety of both the code as well as the documentation, and an on-demand junior developer that's able to ask it questions whenever they need to explain, where is this functionality? Why does it do this? What was the architecture decision that led to this particular class being written? That is so much more effective than taking time away from 2. Now, it's no supplement, it's no reduction in terms of needing those kind of subject matter experts. But the on-demand nature of it, the ability for it to just instantly recall exactly why this code is here, what it does, be able to go through the history of it, that saves so much time in terms of onboarding new developers. And the 5th way that we're seeing people use AI is to generate unit tests. Now, most developers did not go into the business because they like generating unit tests. I'm sorry, it's just the truth. So if you can have a tool that looks at your code, understands what it does, and is able to generate tests for it, you have saved yourself essentially like 50% of the time that it would have taken for someone to write that code themselves, the test code. Now, It's just for unit tests. I don't know if I would honestly recommend it for integration tests. I think that probably should be a separate team. But most developers, they became developers because they like producing things. They like to be able to generate things. Testing, it's part and parcel what we have to do if we're going to be true craftsmen. But in as much as we can, you can save yourself some time if you have AI generate those test cases for you. And sometimes, even though I've been developing for a long time, it'll actually generate ideas for me. It'll say, hey, you haven't tested this edge case. And the faster I can catch that, the more left, the farther left in the development process that I find these kind of issues, the more time it saves, the more people like the application. And it's just, and all around, all those 5 things, they're all about how do we save time? How do we optimize the development process? And how do we make the most of what this business does well, whether it be finance or healthcare or shipping or trucking or shooting rockets into outer space. In as much as you can, if you can use AI to save yourself some time at any part of the SDLC, as long as you can do it safely, ethically, and effectively, it's going to pay dividends. And there's no silver bullet. There's no one piece of it that you can incorporate without having to understand the gestalt. So if you want someone that has done it before, has done it well, and has seen success out of it, Keyhole Software is going to be the firm that you're probably going to find in your Google search results when you go to look for it.